So today, the person who appears to have planned the Paris attacks, Salah Abdeslam, has been caught. He's been apprehended in Belgium. Let me see here. I think this is appropriate.
We got him.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Okay. And in fact, that's literally what the Belgian Foreign Minister Théo Brancken said. He made that same exact announcement. He said, we got him. Okay. And unfortunately, he was not caught for about 4 months, but luckily he had not been able to get out of the area, and he was caught in Molenbeek neighborhood of Brussels, which some say is a hotbed for Islamic jihadism, and his brothers are from there, and one of the brothers, Ibrahim Abdeslam, was one of the attackers and had killed himself with a suicide vest in front of a cafe in Paris. And of course, the Paris attacks, 130 people had died. So this is great to have caught one of the guys who was involved in it. It's great for a number of reasons. Justice, obviously. And then also, he might know about how they plan operations in Europe, and he might know how they get people in from Iraq and Syria. So, and he was wounded in the battle to apprehend him, but he has not been killed. So that's great news because we can get intelligence from him. So the European authorities are obviously all over that right now. France, Belgium, and the whole world celebrating this, that we have brought this guy to justice. 4 other people were also arrested, and this is all happening today. So great news. Oh, and one more thing about this guy, and this is my favorite part. They thought that there might have been an 8th attacker, and they think that it might be him. So not that he was just involved in the planning, and he was. He had gotten them hotel rooms, cars, if the authorities are right? But there was a suicide vest left that was not used. So it appears that this guy was like, yeah, guys, let's go in. We're going to kill him. We're going to do the suicide vest, and okay, you go get him. And at the last second, he's like, I don't think so. And he put it, and the reason I love that is because it's so indicative of the people who push others into this extremism, right? Like anyone who's asked to be a suicide bomber should always say the sentence, you first, right? Yeah. But they don't. They do it last, right? And then while no one's looking, the guy, and his brother went and died too, right?
Yeah.
And they killed all those people, but he snuck out in the middle of the night. Always the planner, right? No, not the guy who's actually going to do it. So either way, now he's been brought to justice. My guess is he's going to face a long time in prison. So great news.
It was interesting to read about it and learn that the Prime Minister of Belgium is named Charles Michel. Because I always say, Americans, we don't know who is leading any other country. So it's always nice to read an article and be like, oh, okay, Charles Michel.
Yeah,
I'll throw that into a conversation tomorrow.
The last leader I remember of France was Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
Could you have named one leader of Belgium before this?
Not Belgium, no.
No. Okay.
No, never.
No. I couldn't even, no.
Belgium is a weird place for all this to be going down because for the longest time, the number one thing I knew about Belgium was that they would be upset about the fact that French fries are actually Belgian. Mm-hmm. That's what that was about. And I was like, oh, they're the fun, friendly, international place that's complaining about French fries. And now they got sleeper cells.
Don't tell me the Danish is also Belgian.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I knew a black guy from Belgium, and he used to call himself Belgium Chocolate.
Yeah.
It's a true story.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's not.
I'm not making that up.
Really? It's true?
Was he a stripper?
He was a comic.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay. All right, so we're obviously in a good mood because the guy got caught. So that's great news. Obviously, the somber part of this is the original acts of terrorism. I wanted to add one more thing about that, though. There was a set of bombings in Ankara recently, and not a lot of press coverage, but including us. We didn't cover it either when it happened. And we should be just as excited if those people are ever caught. We should be just as animated about trying to catch them. Ankara is a capital like any other European capital, and it's not in a war-torn country. You know, people get confused between Turkey's both Mediterranean and Middle Eastern, so they think like, oh, I don't know, there's a lot of bombings there, right? No, normally there isn't. And so many people killed in all 3 of those bombings, over 30 in several of them, and on a bus. And if it happened in Paris, we'd all say, I am Paris. If it happened in Tel Aviv, we would cover it as well we should. If it happened in San Bernardino, we'd cover it a lot. And if it happens in Ankara, I think people rightfully say, hey, how about us, right? And so the whole world should have each other's back. So let's go get the guys who did it in Ankara now. And obviously, if it was a simple answer, we knew exactly who it was, we'd already gotten them. But some solidarity throughout the world here.
So
everybody's celebrating Paris today, but let's go get the sons of bitches who did it to Ankara as well.
is Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, are they calling for a ban from immigration from Belgium? Was that part of one of the countries that they wanted to ban
Definitely, they
immigration?
should. They definitely should.
I mean, that's where that
That makes sense. That's how that mind works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, don't get him started.
Yeah,
Right?
here he comes.
Like, you think Cruz won't?
No, I think he will.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting to me too is the fact that this Molenbeek neighborhood, they were saying it's impoverished and that a lot of these guys are radicalized in jail. So it's a little intimidating about how do we stop this is the bigger question, right? It's not just, I mean, I continue to point out that these guys are criminals. You know, I hate it when they say right away, they go, no Muslims coming in. It's like, well, what the hell does that mean? These guys are actual criminals. It takes a criminal mind. Some Muslims might not like some of the foreign U.S. policy. They might not like, they might be anti-Israel, whatever it is, but very few would take up arms and go do what these guys are doing. They're criminals. And so when they caught him today, and you find out that these guys have all served some terms, they used to be, you know, they did some theft and other stuff. They're criminals. So it's nice to be reminded of that as well.
I mean, isn't that funny that we don't have a ban on criminals coming into the country, but we're considering a ban on Muslims?
Well,
wouldn't you think that we'd be better off targeting the people who are already proven to have broken the laws?
If they banned criminals coming to the country, they would have to ban a lot of bankers.
That's a problem.
Potato,
that's hard.
potato, huh?
You know?
And one more thing about this. To Maz's point there, if they came out of Syria originally, and these, by the way, they were also French citizens, right? They happened to be in Belgium at the time, but they were French citizens. If they were Syrian citizens and they came out of Syria, our answer would be, let's bomb them, right?
Yes.
Now, they came out of Belgium. Is anyone proposing to bomb Belgium? Now, you say, well, that's preposterous. That's absurd, right? Wait. Why is it absurd in Belgium and it's not absurd in Syria? But there's civilians in Belgium. There's also civilians in Syria. But the civilians in Belgium are us. There you have it. Right? If it doesn't make sense in Belgium, it doesn't make sense in Syria.